I decided to clear out some old stuff over Christmas, take the opportunities to throw away some bits and pieces that weren't needed. Amongst that stuff were two kind of old computers, particularly kind of big, bulky base units. There's nothing particularly fancy about them or anything interesting in them, but there is the case in question, the case they're using for this is quite interesting. It's designed specifically for kind of serviceability in mind, but only to a certain extent. I'm just going to quickly kind of open it up and point out some of the interesting parts of this. These cases, I believe, are designed for kind of office environments more than anything, so certain parts are designed to be serviceable. First of all, we've got clips just on the front. So the idea is you push the clips in, the case pulls forward, and the top comes off. The inside is then easy to get at. There are certain parts here which I think they want you to look at and be able to repair. And so, for example, on the front, we've got an old floppy drive, the optical drive and the hard drive. These are attached on this front mechanism here. And this just lifts straight out like so. It's kind of hinged. There is a spring mechanism in there, but it appears to have worn, so it doesn't really stay up, I think, like it's supposed to. And inside you then get access to the processor, which is very kind of easily replaceable. There's just a clip there, I think, which frees that up. You move that, the processor then pops out. Big old-fashioned Pentium device. So that means that can easily be upgraded. The RAM is then available over on this slot here, or these two slots here, and you can easily get at those. And there's also an additional expansion slot there, possibly for kind of VGA memory in there. So bringing back to the front panel here, these drives have quite an interesting locking mechanism. This is the second of these computers I dismantled. The first one, unfortunately, did take me a little while to spot these, so I did start out with a crowbar and use that as the way in, but once you realise how it goes together, it is remarkably simple. And each device has this locking pin here, or this locking plate. Pull that to the side, and the drive then slides up and out. Just pull out the cable from there. And each device, to put a new one in, put it in, slides down and in, and locks. It's a really nice system. So all the devices here, I believe, have this same mechanism. To release the clip, push up and out. And I think there's one for the hard drive as well. Pull the cable out of this first. Again, pull the clip apart. Okay, it's starting to budge. It's a little stiffer. Yeah, probably meant to be in a little bit smoother than that in the actual thing, but yeah, you can see all those three parts come out really nicely. On the back, there are two parts. This is the expansion bay, and this just pulls straight out. You've got a slot for kind of PCI cards in there, an old ISA slot. Then that plugs into this daughter board, which then clips in. So it means you can kind of put in modems, network cards, anything that's needed, fit it into here as a nice unit, and then just plug it in. The power supply also then folds up and out. The connector for the power supply is on the bottom here and it plugs straight into the motherboard. I mean, there's no kind of long trailing cables. It's kind of perfect, really. Unfortunately, this is kind of as far as it goes in terms of getting access to the parts on here. All the other screws that have been used to attach the additional components they're completely non-standard. It's some kind of Torx bit, and then even on the bottom pins, or on some of the others around here, there's a kind of a central kind of pin lug mechanism. So obviously then the final board here kind of comes out in another tray if you wanted to replace that as a whole. But so yeah, I guess all the parts you'd probably want to remove and switch out are designed in this nice way. Everything else isn't. And after pulling out this first one, the only real salvageable parts I found are the ID connector in the back of the power supply. It's worth pulling out. The fan. This power supply unit does use regular Phillips screws, which is quite nice. On the side there's a speaker, and there's also a solenoid inside here. This appears to be kind of a two-state on-off solenoid, and it's there to kind of lock, I believe, the kind of at one of the mechanisms here, so it engages, stopping you from dismantling part of the case mechanism, which is quite interesting. I've got the one I pulled out over here. So this is the solenoid that comes out. It's a really nice double coiled unit. So you apply a power to one of these coils, and this locking pin here will snap over and stay in place. Power doesn't need to be applied to keep it locked into one unit. So that is definitely worth keeping. It is fitted on with some screws on the bottom, which means you do have to drill them out to free that one piece. So that's fitted kind of into the bottom of the case there, so they need to be drilled out. The power supply can be dismantled by hand, just using a screwdriver, and that is pretty much the extent of the salvageability of this computer. But at least it does mean a piece of old crap can get thrown away. Okay, I've pulled out the speaker and the solenoid from the base of the unit. I believe they're the only two salvageable parts there. Remove the remainder from this power supply here. As mentioned, this one does use Phillips screws all round, so it's just a case of remove everything until it drops apart. Even the case of the power supply is hinged, which I didn't notice in the first one. Remove a few parts there. That swings back. So within here, the salvageable parts are the IC connector, which is a shielded one, and it kind of clips away, complete with kind of basic filtering circuit, which is quite nice. The voltage selector switch, it's you kind of need to remove it anyway to dismantle this thing, so it's worth bringing that out, and obviously the fan. The board here, if you wanted, there's probably some parts which can be salvaged from here. You've got certain kind of filtering parts on the power supply coming in. Probably a very kind of custom wire wound transformer there. There's another one there, kind of opto isolators in there, could be worthwhile pulling. There might be the odd other bit. I'm certainly not going to take anything else. I'm going to leave that board as it is, put that in the junk pile, and that just leaves the fan. So yeah, a big pile of old kind of metalwork and old components, but a reasonable handful of parts for such an old computer. Nice 12-volt fan in there, speaker which may or may not come in, a little voltage selector switch or just generic mains voltage switch, the IC connector with kind of filtering components on the side, and the two-way solenoid, which is quite a nice find, and a bit less space on the shelf.